peace to see that you are active, that you are accomplishing things, and sometimes we just get distracted and we lose sight of really how close and how intimate you are with us. We thank you for your Spirit that has made his home in our hearts, and we just ask that we never lose sight of that, that we don't take that for granted. May we continue to just praise you for the forgiveness and the grace that we have through your Son, Jesus. We ask that our hearts, our minds be ready, sharp, ready as we get ready, as Russ is going to share this lesson with us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. So we're looking at Samson. We're actually looking at chapter 15 this morning. Samson has quite a few different stories to look at throughout his life. As Ezekiel told us on Wednesday, it's God's story. Samson's being used. And Samson may not be the greatest guy. He has some pride. He has, look at me, he thinks he's special. But God still uses. And then his wife betrays him and tells the riddle. And so he loses. He kills 30 Philistines, takes their clothes to pay the debt, and leaves. And that's where we're going to pick up this morning in Judges 15 in verse 1. It says, after a while, and I like that statement, like you always wonder, like, how long did it take? And God is like, you don't need to know that. He says, after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it happened that Samson visited his wife with a young goat and said, let me go into my wife, into her room. But her father would not permit him to go in. Her father said, I really thought that you thoroughly hated her. Therefore, I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead. So it's interesting. I just want to start off with this young goat. This concept of, to me, it looks like he's paying the father. He's like, here's a gift. All right, let me see my wife. And I have a funny story. Well, I don't know if it's that funny, but when I was giving my daughter away, she decided, and this was like a month's planning, like, hey, we're getting married 30 days from now. And so it's in Flagstaff, and we did it in a park. And we didn't even set up chairs. We just went to the park, and people are standing. And I take my daughter up and give her to Nakai. And then they go up, and they're positioned face to face for this wedding. And he pulls out of his coat pocket, and he reaches across and hands it to me. And everybody saw it. And I'm like, we're all serious. This is a wedding. And I'm like looking at it. And I started laughing. And afterwards, people were like, what was on the note? What was on the note? It says, I owe you one goat. And he drew a picture in case I didn't know what that goat looked like. So I still haven't got my goat. I think I'm going to send him a picture of this and say, you can have it butchered too. But the idea of giving a goat is not uncommon in the scriptures. You see people give goats and whatever dowries or however they want. It's his wife. He says, I'm bringing you a goat. Let me go and see her. And he said, I already gave you to your companion. Now, it's interesting because Samson, being of Israel, is not supposed to marry a Gentile. And he did. And now he's trying to go see her. And he's like, oh, I already gave her away to your companion. I thought you hated her, because he just killed 30 Philistines and left. So, but I started thinking, I was like, well, who is this companion? Can you imagine your friend and the father-in-law just gave your wife to your friend? In Judges 14:20, it says, And Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his best man. So I don't know, I think that would upset him a little bit. And that's what happens. So that's like it says a while. After a while, he shows up. So I don't know how long it is, but he goes, he can't see her. She's given to his best man. And Judges 15:3, and Samson said to them, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." Then Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and he took torches and turned the foxes tail to tail and put a torch between each pair of tails. When he had set the torches on fire, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and burned up both the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and the olive groves. I try to picture this guy. At first I was picturing this great big guy running around getting foxes. Now they're like a small dog. Foxes aren't real big. But this big guy running around, I don't know if he had a burlap bag or 300 foxes. But then I started thinking, I don't know if there's a description that he is a big guy. We always assume that, but every time he does something like Ezekiel talked about when he tore the lion, the Lord brought him that power. So we don't even really know how big was he. I couldn't find a description. Maybe there's one somewhere. But the foxes are sly, they're sneaky, they're zooming around, and he's just gathering up 300 of them. I just tried to picture that, and it just looks funny in my head what's going on there. And 300 is a lot. Like, how big a territory did he go over to get 300 foxes? But what you start to see is this, it's like a game to him. Like a game. He's going to burn their crops down. I mean, he could just set them on fire, but instead, he gets these foxes, and they have big bushy tails, and he gets their tails on fire and lets them go. And you can imagine 300 foxes just running everywhere and burning things down. And as one of the Philistines, you'd be like, we got to put the crops out, but we should stop the fox and don't let them get in the barn and then the houses. The foxes would be going everywhere. And again, I just think that Samson made it a game. Everything is a game or a riddle to him. He's doing this crazy stuff. And when we start off in verse 3 where it says, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." Remember back in chapter 13 when all we were hearing about is his parents. But it says that this barren woman's going to have a son, and he's going to begin to deliver Israel. That's in 13:5. So it's part of what he's supposed to do is deliver Israel. Well, he just sabotaged their food. I mean, when you're counting on crops and vineyards, that's once a year picking. Some crops grow in the spring and some in the fall, but your grapes are one time, your olive groves is one time. And he just wrecked their food supply and then left. So the story, if you just read through, it's just kind of interesting. But when you start to visualize what's going on and the chaotic foxes running around with their tails on fire and what he's done to them, and he's just saying, I should be blameless because they took his wife and gave it to his best man.
Interesting. But the 300 foxes, I've always wondered, I'm like, why 300? Why so many? But when you look at like Samson, he always one-ups. So like, kind of like, you wrong me, well, I'll wrong you even more.
Yes.
And what's interesting is his wife is given away, and he goes, well, now I'll be blameless. And then he goes and gets 300 foxes, and you're like, couldn't you just burn down one crop? He's in the mindset of, I'm burning down everything.
I'm burning it all.
Which is interesting, like you were saying, like he just killed their food supply. But it also shows that characteristic spark up again. It's not just enough to do equal.
Right.
I'm doing more.
Right.
Like you took my wife, I'll burn down all your crops.
He said the one-upmanship. Yeah, because we're going to see a little bit more, a little snapshot of how the Philistines, remember, God has raised up the Philistines to put Israel in captivity. They're in charge over them. But then he said it would be for 40 years. Well, Samson is born inside that 40 years and raised up. So if you guesstimate he's 20 when he starts harassing the Philistines, he was raised to deliver Israel from the Philistines. Of Judges 15:6. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And they answered, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given him to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Then Samson said, "Since you would do this thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that I will cease." So he attacked them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock at Edom. So there's that upmanship. Well, you did this to me, and he did this great slaughter. And I had to look this up because in verse 8 it says, he attacked them with hip and thigh with the great slaughter. And I was like, I'd never heard, I've read this, but it's like, it's not a common, like, what do you mean? Well, in a biblical context, the hip can be a symbol of strength or weakness. And you picture, if you hurt your hip, you're pretty much done for a while. You're not doing much. And so that concept that he's hitting them in their weakness, or maybe that's their strength, whichever, that's where he attacks. And he does this great slaughter, and then he's just going to go hang out in the cleft of the rock. And it's just an interesting thing. But I'm thinking about the Philistines being evil, and that's why God is going to take them out. There's this little snapshot here that they ask what happened, and they say, well, his father-in-law gave away his wife to his companion. And so they're determined, well, we need to burn you down. So they understand that's the wrong thing. That's wrong. You don't give a man's wife away. They understand that, but they're not angels here. They just burned her and her father. So the Philistines are kind of evil people, but they did catch that, like, hey, you don't do that. We'll burn you down too. But they do know that Samson's the one that just burned everything up. So it's Samson's fault, and they're going to go after him. But they do realize that, hey, you can't just give a guy's wife away. That's not right. So you get a little snapshot of them, but overall they're evil, but they have these things that are right and wrong. You just don't do that. Man, there was something else I was going to tell you, and I can't. All right, Judges 15:9. Now the Philistines went up, encamped in Judah, and deployed themselves against Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "What have you come up against us?" So they answered, "We have come up to arrest Samson, to do to him as he has done to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Edom and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? What is this that you have done?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." But they said to him, "We have come down to arrest you, that we may deliver you into the hand of the Philistines." This, again, this situation where we come to do to you as you've done to us. And Samson's like, I just did to them as they done to me. And you start to see this, like, whatever you do to me, I'm going to do to you. And usually Samson likes to up it a little bit. And then whatever you did to me, I'm going to do to you, and back and forth. And I was thinking about that. Like, hopefully we don't get into that. Well, you gossiped about me, I'm going to gossip about you. Well, you said that, I'm going to say this. And hopefully we don't live our lives in that realm, because as you can see, it can get really escalated and go bad. But that's Samson's, like, yeah, whatever they did to me, I did to them. And that's how the Philistines talked. What we're going to do to him as he did to us. And so our lesson is, don't live that way. Don't make your life in that realm. And then I think it's interesting too that Israel, those men of Judah, 3,000 of them come down to get Samson. And their statement is, do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? And Samson was raised to go against that, to take down the Philistines, to deliver Israel from them. And they're like, we're just going to deliver you to them. And so it's like they're not really paying attention to the opportunity that God is presenting for them to not be enslaved anymore, to not be ruled over. And they're just going to deliver them to them. And again, I want to remind us from Judges that he was born to be raised up to be the deliverer of Israel. And yet they're just going to, well, we're going to give you to the Philistines. And they must know his history because they bring 3,000 men to get Samson. That's a lot of people. You know, for one person, that seems like you could bring 4 or 5 guys, you could stop me. They bring 3,000.
What's interesting is these are the men of Judah. Like, this shows the heart of Israel right now. Like, Judah would rather have their deliverer given. They don't want to be delivered here. They're not crying out to God, which I find really interesting in this story because Judges is full of the cycle. They're not at the repentance yet.
Right.
And God is still planning to deliver. He still sees the agony and whatnot. But it's interesting that Judah comes over and says, you better stop it. They rule over us. And it's like, you don't know my purpose.
Right.
But I don't know if Samson knows his purpose at this point. Like,
Yeah, he may not.
I don't know. But it's interesting that they want to deliver him to the Philistines.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the story, God's looking for an opportunity to destroy them.
Yes.
And so it's like a whole mess of a situation, and yet God is still making it work.
Right. And all along his story, Samson's story, he messes up the Philistines constantly. Kills some of them, burns down their crops, kills some other. It's a constant where he's really messing them up, but seems as though Israel's not even paying attention, like, oh, you're the deliverer. So they're ready to give him back to them. And I thought it was interesting because we cut off verse 12, so I'm going to finish verse 12 and read 13. It says, then Samson said to them, swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves. So they spoke to him, saying, no, but we will tie you securely and deliver you into their hand, but we will surely not kill you. And they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him from the rock. It's, Samson's talking to them. There's 3,000 men. I don't even know how much space that takes up, but there's 3,000 men come to get you. And he's talking to them like he has choices. Like, just promise me you won't kill me, and then I'll let you take me. He has that confidence in I can take on anybody. And sometimes I wonder, like, does he know that's from the Lord, or does it just my pride? I'm that tough. But we will see where he mentions it. But he's talking to them like, yeah, okay, you can take me. And I wonder if he's thinking, so I can kill more Philistines. And he's nonchalant about this. When 3,000 men show up, it just seems like you would just like, hey, whatever you want. But he's negotiating with, just promise me you won't kill me. And so when they take him and they tie him up in the ropes, verse 14, it says, when he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting against him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. And he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it, and killed 1,000 men with it. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. And so it was when he had finished speaking that he threw the jawbone from his hand and called that place Ramath Lehi. They come shouting out, and it kind of, you see this kind of in today's world. It's kind of a mob mentality. Like they're just all of a sudden they're all just yelling and carrying on. Nobody's really saying, hey, you did this and we're here to arrest you for it. They're just shouting at him and the whole mob gets involved. So you really, like, I could see where Samson's like, okay, this is not going to go well. The whole group is shouting. And it tells us the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And the ropes became like, and I like to point out the word like, it wasn't flax. It became like flax that had been burned. Well, flax it's a plant that's very fibrous. And if you burn it, it's nothing. It's like a wick from a candle that just falls apart. And so the ropes just fall right off of them. And it's interesting if you're reading through all the Bible, you'll remember there's a couple of incidences, but with Paul in Acts 16:26, he's in prison. And all of a sudden the doors swing open and the chains fall off. It wasn't because Paul was strong. It wasn't, in this case, Samson. It wasn't because he was strong that the ropes fell off. The Lord freed him, took the ropes away from him, took the bonds off his hands, and gave him a jawbone, which I think is kind of interesting because right after the fact, he has a jawbone, he takes on all these people, and it looks like he tries, I'm going to read it again. It says, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. It seems like it's just off the top of his head. He's trying to make a riddle out of it or some kind of a song. Just because when you think about a jawbone, and it says it's fresh, so I'm assuming all the muscle and sinews and all the stuff is still there. But that's what he fights with. And the Israel, Judah has got him. 3,000 men came and got him. And he just fights 1,000 of them. You would think 3,000 men of Judah could have took 1,000 men of Philistines. Except their mindset is they rule over us. They're not thinking that God's in charge. They're saying those people rule over us. Because there's 3,000 of them. And here's Samson taking it on his own with the jawbone. And they didn't do it. They just didn't do it themselves. In Judges 15:18, then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to the Lord and said, you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. Now I shall die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised. So when I was looking at this, I just want to ask you guys, tell me something about verse 18. Then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to the Lord and said, you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. Now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised. Tell me something about that verse that you see here.
In a way, to me, it sounds like he's, I wouldn't say mocking, but in a way, kind of mocking God a little bit, and kind of telling him that, I'm thirsty, give me some water, because I'm doing this for you. Kind of like saying that, I'm the one that's doing all the hard work, so give me some water.
Right?
Yeah, in a way, it's like you can see him begging for it, but then he's also doing it in a mocking type of way, kind of saying that, I'm the one more powerful than you in some ways, but not. So to me, this kind of sounded like a back and forth type of thing.
A little bit of mocking, like, I did this, I'm your servant, but I'm dying of thirst, kind of thing. Anybody else got some thoughts on that?
It's interesting because it's like, where is his mindset? I don't know where, because you have this mocking. You also have other times where people will state what God has done for them, almost in a way of like, honor. David does this in the Psalms and like what God has done.
Mm-hmm.
But he's all like, I'm your servant. I'm thirsty. Like it's weird. Like, where is his heart in in this sentence, you know, like,
Right.
is he saying like, I'm your servant, you're just gonna let me die like this? Or is he saying like, I'm so great and you're just gonna let me die like this? Like, I don't know.
Right. So one of the things I thought of was, I think I'm going to get which name it is. Elijah, didn't he do all the miracle and everything, and then he runs and hides in the cave? He's like, oh, I'm the only one left. They're going to kill me. The same concept is he's praised God for all the stuff that just took place, but now it's over. And here's Samson. What I thought of, it goes along with that jawbone and the little song, I think. He's like, a jawbone? Really? There's no way that God had to take care of this. There's no way I fought 1,000 men with a jawbone and won. So he's, in my view, he's given credit. There's no way I could have done it. I'm giving you the credit. But he's still Samson. He's like, and you're going to let me die. So maybe there's a little bit of that mocking about, look what I've done for you, and now don't let me die of thirst. But remember, we've talked about that Samson is listed in Hebrews as the faithful. That whole list of faithful people, and he's listed, and he's kind of prideful, and he's kind of, everything's a game, and he does his own thing. But this one piece gives you that, I know that you did this.
I was gonna say, it's really funny because like we kind of look at it in a certain way, but then you kind of sit there and think that this is kind of what we do on a daily basis.
This is what we do.
It's like, you know, we go and say like, yep, God gave me like this house, this thing and everything, but then we go and say, but I worked so hard for it.
Yes.
So it's kind of a daily thing, like you can use it with anything. You know, I have this God-given talent to be a great athlete, but I'm the one that got here.
Right. We do it in a lot of parts of our lives. We'll have prayer requests. I was going to point the whiteboard. It's not there anymore. We'll have these prayer requests of, I need to get a job, I need to get a job. And then we talk about how we got this great job and how awesome it is in our training and we just ask God to give us that. Or we get it and then we hate it. I got to get up and go to work. And like, you asked for it. And so maybe that's where Samson is. I see that with a jawbone, this happened. It must be you. But can't you just give me some water too? You know? So sometimes I wonder if that's, like you say, I think we get caught up in it. We're thankful for the things we have, and then we can't believe this house payment I have to deal with. We can't believe this car payment. And so we'll ask for things that are provided, and then we'll just forget that God provided it.
In a way you can, like this is me, but in a way you can kind of look at it when Jesus was in the desert, you know, Satan was tempting him, you know, turn these rocks into bread because you're hungry. But then it's kind of like that. There's like a certain humbleness we should have with certain things, that we know that we can't live on certain items in the world, you know, alone.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of, that's where we, in our mind, should feel it. You know, we shouldn't depend on this, like, bread alone, you know, but everything that God speaks. And we should know that in times of, like, things that Samson's going through, that God will provide, you know.
Yes.
And not make it seem like it's a, as I said, like a mocking thing, you know.
Right. It's has that tone of almost, I think of it like two-faced, like, thank you for this deliverance, but I'm going to die. Like you just right then in the moment have forgot he's taking care of you. 1,000 men. So I was picturing, now if you've seen the movies like Braveheart, and the men, the enemy is just a big range man. They got their shields and their hammers and their swords, and you're on this side with your shields and swords. And when the war starts and they run in, you individually are not concerned that there's a big war going on. There's 2 or 3 enemies right here in front of you, and that's what you're concerned about. And when you get done there, if you're the winner, there's another row of them. But you're not, it's not a big war, it's you. And then I started picturing Samson is by himself. It's 1 on 1,000. I would hope that he gets so they can't get behind him. But I don't know. He has a jawbone against their swords. And it doesn't really say what their weapons were, but that was the common, to have swords and shields. And he has this jawbone that just happened to be laying there.
One, it says fresh, so I'm curious if he ripped it out of a donkey.
Maybe.
It doesn't say laying there. But when you look at his prayer, it says, then he became thirsty. You have given a great deliverance by the hand of your servant. I don't know, but I think that gives a little bit more insight to how he thinks he's delivered. You gave this great deliverance, but it was by my hand.
That could be.
And it's like, I don't know how thankful he is. Like he could be, sure. And maybe they speak different than us, but it's like, okay, you gave this great deliverance, but I know how.
Right. It was
And
me.
it's like, Samson.
So even on that note, though, I have to think, okay, but now what about thirst? Like, okay, this I can't fix.
Yeah.
I can't fix this part. I could whoop him up with this jawbone, but I can't fix the thirst.
I'm just wondering, like, was it really necessary to fight the Philistines? Probably got the strength to escape, hightail out there, and then decided to stay there and fight the enemies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it really necessary to fight them?
It is interesting because when you're just reading through, but the jawbone was just there, fresh. Like you said, maybe he ripped it out. Like he just yanked it out of a donkey. I don't know, but it says it was laying there. He picked it up. This whole thing is interesting because I think, he judged Israel for 20 years, which we're about to read, and he got into Hebrews as having faith. So maybe this is as far as I can remember, might be the only snapshot of his thinking of where his faith is at, what's going on.
This is the first time I'm really diving into this particular story. And it seems to me that while from the outside we look at Samson as being pompous and full of himself, I think the fact that he was chosen was for that reason. A meek, mild individual maybe wouldn't have had the courage to do what he's done, albeit he's been a little bit crass about it, egotistical. I think when Reggie said that he was being sort of rude to God, like, where's my water? I'm thirsty. I did this for you. And God went ahead and opened up was it a side of a hill or something?
Yeah, we haven't read that yet.
Oh, sorry. But anyway, I think he did that because he was thankful and appreciated Samson's courage.
Right. Actually, let's just read that part because verse 19. So God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore he called its name Enah Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. There's this piece of this that really struck me, and I think we need to pay attention, is he's crass, he's prideful, I did this, look at me. But when he asked God, God listened. God listened, and he gave him the water. It's interesting because everything is a game to Samson. Everything is, look at me, but God listened. And I sometimes wonder if we know ourselves. I know me better than you guys know me. And then when we're going to go to God, we should know he's going to listen. Whenever we turn to God, he'll listen. And God takes care of them. And then, you have to start to think. In this case, there was water. I could picture him being fully dehydrated. He just fought 1,000 guys with a jawbone. But God provided the water right there. Just opened up the ground or whatever. And what is our need that we feel like, well, I couldn't ask? There's no way. God's not going to listen to me. What is the need that we have that we're afraid to ask for? hopefully our mindset is always what is his will. But sometimes we just stop asking, or we're just, I know that I fail. I know look what I did this week. And we're not turning to God. So Samson, this to me is a big piece of it, is that he asked God for the water. Man, I'm dying of thirst here. He might have sounded mocking, whatever it was, but God listened and opened it up and gave him water. And sometimes I think we don't ask. And the very things that we need, those are the things we could ask. The things we want, we can still ask. But he's like, yeah.
I think kind of just adding on to, like, you know, when you kind of emphasize what he was doing in the moment, you know, it's exhausting, you know, to be in, like, battle. I know they're in battle, but you know, it's like, yeah, winded just carrying groceries up the stairs. But, you know, to go against 1,000 men, you know, how tired you are, how you're at a breaking point. And in a way, this is just me kind of seeing maybe that's kind of something that we have ourselves, you know, that we get tired, exhausted, all these things through life. And then in that moment, that's usually when we, you know, call upon God. And I think in a way it kind of teaches us that, you know, like, yeah, we'll have that breaking point, but then we can still call upon God. And then, you know, some of the stronger ones, like especially when you speak to elders, it's like, oh yeah, we had all this stuff happen, and you're like listening, like that's a lot, but then you're like, but they have more of a, I don't know, like a humbleness, or like, I know God will be there, you know, kind of
Right.
even in the hardest of times, and then you start seeing that difference between like a newer Christian or somebody that has been through a lot of trials, tribulations, things like that, just the way they go about asking God for certain things. And even after so many stresses, that's how they started with that stress, they'll end where it's more calm and peaceful. So maybe that's just something there to kind of think about with what he was going through there, and kind of thinking about yourself. And when things get tough, sometimes we will be a little bit more belligerent, angry, frustrated, things like that. But you know, eventually, maybe our goal is to be like, even through all of this, maybe we'll be like, God, I know you're working, but can you please like help this time?
Yeah, I think especially if we are feeling that exhausted concept, like you're saying, he's fought 1,000 men. He's exhausted. He knows to ask God for that water, but he may not be that clear about the honor, to giving God the honor. But, you know, we're going to live our lives and we're going to go through things that we think, this is it, man, there's no way I can get through this. Let's not wait till we're fully exhausted to turn to God. God is listening even when we're prideful. I mean, there's plenty of scriptures that tell us stop being prideful. But we're human, and we're going to get to put ourselves in a position where we're exhausted and we're not following like we probably should. But when we realize it, it's okay to ask God, come save me. Come give me that water that I need. And I know that I've had time in my life where I'm like, I'm trying to live for you, and you said, I'm telling that to the creator of all things, and you said, and he didn't strike me dead. But we put ourselves in a mess sometimes, and we get exhausted, and maybe at this point, Samson's like, okay, I'm supposed to take down the Philistines. I just took care of 1,000 of them by myself. Whatever the thing is, I think the thing we want to focus on, what is your need that you have not asked God to take care of? Why are we not asking God? How exhausted do you have to be before you're going to say, okay, God, let's do it your way. Okay, God, I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully, as we mature, we get to that point where we always let him lead and always bring everything to him, our joys as well as our needs. But needs, God will take care of. He gave him the water. And I'm out of time. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just praise you and we thank you. We thank you for these stories. We know that they're true stories and that you've put them down for examples for us. Help us to learn. Help us to pay attention. Help us to lift each other up, to take care of needs for each other. Help us to always turn to you for joys and our needs. Help us to stay in your word and grow and be mature and to follow you always. We thank you for your son.